Hello, James Arter here. I hope you're doing really well. So STL Tones have recently released a brand new plugin called AmpHub. It's very cool indeed. I thought it might be nice to do a bit of a walkthrough. So if you're interested in checking it out, stick around and we'll walk through it together. As always, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe and the notification bell and you'll be notified of any upcoming videos. Also, if you sign up to the mailing list, I'll send you some free stuff, being an EQ cheat sheet and a whole bunch of one-shot drum samples which you can use in your mixes. Okay, let's jump in. So what is new and what is different about this plugin as opposed to the other plugins by STL Tones? Well, the main thing is this one is actually subscription based. Yes, you can purchase the individual parts, but it's in your best interest to do the subscription, and it's only $10 a month, so it actually seems very reasonable. The other thing that's different is whereas STL Tone Hub was more preset based, this is a little bit more amp and gear based, so it's more designed for you to start afresh and dial in your own tones, which is really cool. The other thing that's very interesting about this is although you get a whole range of different pedals and amplifiers to choose from, they're going to be added to. So what you have right now isn't the end. They're going to be adding new amps and new pedals every month, so that is definitely something to try and keep you interested. Now, before we dive into actually looking at the plugin itself, let's just have a quick blast of it sounding nice and big. After that, I'll walk you through the plugin, going through all of what it can do, and then right at the end, we'll actually dial in a tone. So if you just want to jump to the dial in and the tone part and you don't want to listen to any of that, that's absolutely fine. I'll leave the timestamps in the description. Okay, let's kick off. So as you load it up, this is what you're greeted with. I think it's safe to say it's a very nice and clean and clear GUI, which makes everything much more pleasing to use. It's important when you've got so many different controls on something like this to have a very straightforward and intuitive GUI so you can just get started straight away. Let's just run along the bottom and just have a little look at what these functions do. So you've got your input knob to start off with, which is just after your actual input level. So it's recommended to make sure that you're getting a decent level coming into the plugin to begin with, which is something that goes without saying anyway, really, but it's best just to be clear on that. If you're not getting a strong enough level, boost it on your interface. Or if it's something that's already been recorded, like what I've got here, I've got a pre-recorded DI, then you can always use this input to bring it up to a better level, or what I think would be the preferential choice is to actually do some clip gain within your DAW and bring that up there. So let's just have a little look. So what we've got. That's not bad, but yeah, something about there is going to be a little bit safer. Next along is the gate. This is really handy. Lots of amp simulation plugins are doing this now. Of course, it's a noise gate to get rid of all of the noisy gaps in between your chugs. Of course, being an amp simulation plugin, it's going to be emulating the sound of amplifiers, and valve amps especially can be quite noisy. So this is a really handy feature. Next up is the good old tuner. As soon as you click that, it will appear with something like this. And something that's really good about this, because some tuners don't do this and I really wish they would, you can choose whether you want to hear the note or not, like so. Very handy if you just don't want to hear the annoying sound of tuning a guitar, or perhaps you're in a session and you don't want to bore your clients with that annoying sound. Next up is the pedals that go in the front end of the amp. So when you start up, you're going to be greeted with this Tyrant Ignite Amps pedal, which is already very good, so it's definitely worth a look. But by clicking up here, you can have a little look and see all of what you've got to choose from. Now, it's one thing to mention that, as I said at the beginning, although you've got a good selection here of 3, 6, 9 pedals, they are going to be adding some more. So this isn't all you're going to get if you do the subscription, and I guess you wait a couple of months, there'll be some more things. So you've got all your favorites in there. Compressor, 6-band EQ, the old Maxon 808, lovely jubbly, Boss SD1, can't go wrong with that. The old faithful Ibanez Tube Screamer, probably one of the most used overdrive pedals in rock and metal. TC Electronics integrated preamplifier. Big favourite by Matt Heafy from Trivium, if you're that way inclined. Good old 1433. You can't go wrong with anything by those guys. The old Tyrant Ignite amps, as I mentioned before. And then we've got one more cheeky preamp stroke overdrive there. Now, what's very good is you've got 4 slots to choose from, so you can chuck in 4 different pedals of your choice, and it's quite easy to move them around as well. So all you have to do is click the one you want to move, and then click where you want to move it to from up here, and voila, it's moved. Personally, I quite like the idea of just clicking on a pedal and dragging it over, but that's much of a muchness. I don't think we're going to lose too much sleep over that. Okay, next up, the amplifier section. Now, you've got a whole bunch to choose from, and they are all very good. I've been going through it yesterday, and I must say they sound fantastic. So let's just have a little look and see what we've got. Got the Ignite Amps Emissary, of course. Fender Bassman, I believe that is. Got a Fender Deluxe, can't go wrong with one of those. A Frameless Cobra. And the Dragon as well, both killer amps. Then we've got some Marshalls, got a J45, and so we've got, it's like a, guess that's your Plexi, and then we've got a JTM 800. Every studio should have one. SL100 there, and what we've got, the old faithful Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, used on more metal records than you can shake a stick at. Got to have some orange in there. There's the old Rocker Verb. In fact, it's just a Rocker 50. There's no verb on it. The Soldano, an old favourite for many. And last, but by no means least, a Vox AC30. And I must say, the sound of this emulation is absolutely incredible. So we'll have a little listen to that in a bit. Next up is the cab element. So I'm just gonna read you what they say in a manual about this. So they say it's powered by Ignite Amps Azimut 4, which is 4-dimensional IR interpolation technology. Now, whatever that means is irrelevant, but it's very, very good. We've seen a GUI like this before. It's not brand new, but it is nice and clean and clear, which I think is very important, like I said before. You've got 2 speakers which you can use. As you start, it's actually set up just to be using the speaker on the left. As you can see here, you've got a slider which will change between left and right and how much you want to get the balance of them. At the top here, you can choose your cabinet and different microphones. Of course, there's all your favorites to choose from. Looking at the Mesa Boogie, for example, the rectifier with vintage 30s, and then you've got all of your favorite microphones in there just to cover all of the bases. Also, you can very easily change the mic position literally just by dragging this little bullseye around. If you hit Control and drag it, that's going to be adjusting the distance of the microphone to the speaker, which is quite cool. If you right click and give it a bit of a shimmy, that changes the angle up to 45 degrees. So really handy feature to have. In addition to that, you've got a high pass filter and a low pass filter, and you can adjust the resonance. So you've got quite a lot of features on here. Also, if you need to, each side has got its own volume control, which you can adjust up and down nice and easy like that. And you've also got a phase switch. Now, there's one thing to note at this point. If you happen to be wanting to use your own IRs, because lots of people do that, I do that myself, this one isn't an IR loader as such, so you'll need to get an external one to do that. There are so many I can recommend, but I think that's for another video. But one thing that you do need to bear in mind is if you click on its icon, as you can see there, it's all faded. That means that you've turned it off. However, due to the way they've set this up, it hasn't fully disconnected from this IR loader. So the amp will be responding to it as though it's still connected, but you won't hear the cabinets. So one thing you need to make sure you do is go up to each one and click disconnected. That means it's going to be true bypass. It's totally taken it out of the signal. So when you're coming from the amp into one of your IR loaders, you're going to be going in with the truest tone. Okay, last but not least are the effects. These come post amplifier, and there are quite a few options in here, which is really, really great. I'll just run through, but you've got another 9 options here. And like I said before, if you're doing a subscription, they will be adding to them. So I think there'll be some fun things to come. Let's just have a quick look. So we've got digital chorus, digital phaser, £10 EQ, digital delay, which is very good indeed, digital reverb, which is massive, parametric EQ, digital flanger, a good old tremolo, which sounds awesome by the way, and a compressor if you need to chuck that in at the end of your chain. Now lastly, you've got an output knob as well. So it's best to keep an eye on the level here and make sure that you're not clipping the output. I'll show you what happens if you do. You'll see the levels start to flash a different shade of red. I'll just make that happen. As you can see. Now, STL Tones have said that even if you're clipping this, it won't actually be clipping your signal because they have things in their set to avoid that happening. But if you are getting a little bit hot, you can easily bring down the output. Or what I would generally do is actually bring down the master on the amplifier itself before it even gets there. Okay, and other little things on the plugin. Right at the top here, you can change the size nice and easily. Just like so, very handy. You got your presets list. A few different artists and stuff from STL Tones in there just to get you running. Click the question mark if you want to go and read the manual. It's definitely worth a read. I'm a big fan of reading manuals. And then also, lastly, you've got the routing function here. So as it stands, because I'm on a mono track, the only option I'll have is mono. If I'm running on a stereo track, now you'll have some different options to choose from. Choose stereo, everything is going to stay true stereo all the time. So that can mean if you're using any patches that have stereo effects, they're going to be played back in stereo. Also, if you have this inserted on a bus, you could be sending 2 guitar DIs to one bus. If you have that in stereo mode, it will essentially send each DI to a left and a right of the plugin, and therefore sending it to 2 amps. It does mean that you can't do 2 different amps. So for example, if you choose the Mesa Boogie, it means any settings that you change on here will apply for both sides. Great if you're having exactly the same setup on both sides. You can, save on CPU and just use one instance of the plugin, but not as good if you want to have 2 separate amps. That will, of course, have to be 2 mono tracks. Now, the last option appears here, which is mono stroke stereo. Now, of course, you can only insert this if you've chosen the right version of the plugin itself. So in Pro Tools, for example, when you're selecting that, you've got 2 options here, either mono or mono stereo. So if you go to mono stereo, like so, and if you leave it in mono stereo, it will mean if you're cycling through presets, and some of them will just be mono anyway because there's no other stereo effects and whatnot going on, then it will remain mono. But if you cycle through the presets and you get to one which has some effects which are stereo, like stereo delays and reverbs and whatnot, then that's the point at which it will change the plugin to stereo and play back in true stereo. Now, one last thing to look at here, if you click this little padlock, it will prevent it from changing its state regardless of what preset you use. So for example, if we leave it in mono and lock that, it means even if you change to a different preset and the preset has stereo information in, it will keep it mono. Handy thing to have and definitely handy thing to know. Now, I know what you're thinking, dude, can you just play some of the amps so we can hear what it sounds like? Well, yes, I think it is time to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cycle through a whole bunch of the amps just to get a little bit of a feel of it so you can hear them one after the other. And then I'm going to try and dial in the tone from scratch, and I'm going to try and recreate the sound that you heard at the start of the video. So I'm just going to play it and I'm just going to have a little bit of a jam around. Okay, here we go. And as you can see, it was obviously just a bit of a run through, just casually playing through. But all the amps sound quite different. There's quite a palette to choose from there. So there's really quite a lot of choice already. Even though they're going to be adding a whole bunch of amps, which is fantastic, we've already got a lot to play with. Now, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can dial in the tone from scratch and see if I can get back to a similar sound that I had before. And then we'll hear it in the context of the track as well. One thing that I find really interesting is playing around with the tone of the different cabs. So I'm going to dial in something which is kind of fairly standard. We'll try a nice Mesa Boogie forward 12 cab with vintage 30s. Good old 57. Let's have a listen to that first. And then let's add to that. I'm just going to listen to the other one. I'm going to add to that. We're going to go with the same cab, but with a Roya ribbon. You can't go wrong with a ribbon. Get a nice chunky bit down there. And then let's just blend those two together. Okay, that's fine. Side. So we're just going to have a quick listen to what that sounds like in the context of the mix. I've just copied over the same sound over to the other side. It can be sometimes great to have two slightly different guitar sounds, but in this case, I'm just keeping it simple. And I'm just going to use the same one. And let's have a listen then. Beautiful. So you get the idea. I mean, that is just one sound that I've dialed in, and I've only really scratched the surface there. But you can hear that the amp sounds are just absolutely incredible. Now, it's only fair to have a little bit of a listen to some of the clean tones because there are some wonderful options. I'm going to start from the beginning and just try to dial something in. I've got two different clean guitars here, both doing slightly different things. We're going to see if I can get them to sound just a little bit more fun. Very, very handy tap tempo you've got on this delay, which is really useful. Or you can just hit BPM sync if you want to sync it to the track. Okay, so we're just going to have a quick look at the other one and then bring those two together and see how it sounds. I'm just going to dial in something very quickly. And we'll just have a quick listen to both of those in context. So there we are. Of course, that isn't an in-depth look at all the clean tones in there, but it just gives you a little bit of an overview of what you've got to play with. And as you can see, I played with a few of the effects in there, and they really do sound very good, and there's lots of functionality as well. So you can really chisel away and just hone in on the sound that you're looking for. And just to make things even more annoying, I think some of these tones are sounding even better than the original amps that were recorded in the first place. But hey, what's done is done. So there we have it. That was just a little bit of an overview of AmpHub by STL Tones. I think it's safe to say it's really quite a comprehensive package. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's lots to play with. And as mentioned before, what's really nice is there are more things to come. So if you sign up for the all access subscription, which is only $10 a month, which is very, very reasonable, you'll still get more things added each month. It has to be said, I'm not affiliated or endorsed by STL Tones. I just wanted to try it out and give you guys just a little bit of a demo so you can see what you think. So far, I've just tried the 10-day free trial, but I think I'm going to be doing a subscription because I'm converted. Now, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you think it's an improvement? Do you think it's better than other amp simulators? Why not leave some comments below and we can have a little talk about it. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you get a chance, and also sign up to the mailing list and I'll send you some free stuff. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.